Welcome everyone. I'm here despite the fact that I'm still fighting this cold valiantly. We're going toe to toe, despite the fact that I really don't have much to talk about. I am here. So today's going to be a kind of a potpourri. There's a tweet that I just saw that I want to talk about. A couple of articles, random articles on various websites that I saw that I want to talk about. Well, I guess I can talk about them. Not that exactly that I want to, but whatever. Uh, there may be some odd mutes as I blow my nose through these things, but I'm here. I seem to be mostly fine. And then as soon as this thing is over, I'm finishing this bottle of NyQuil and got to be up and ready in the morning. So again, hope everyone is doing well. Hope everyone's having a solid weekend or plan to have a solid weekend. Deadline is Saturday. I am indeed looking forward to it. So two of the articles that I want to look at is one from the Sportster. I hate stupid lists, but this one is interesting. It says 10 hated wrestling world champions who didn't get a fair shot. I want to read that. And I typically don't read lists, but and then this one is from Sam Fields from Voices of Wrestling. It says Tony Khan needs to tell the second half better, which is about Tony Khan's storytelling. I read some of it. I skimmed through it. I was going to do it as a video tomorrow. I'm just going to do it tonight so I could take this NyQuil and go to sleep. But the what we're going to start with is a tweet that I just read that I think is actually quite interesting, and I think it's something that the wrestling nerds are dealing with. Uh, and it's going to be quite funny in a few years, but for right now, it's entertaining to me and me alone, I guess. But we'll see what they mean. Do I like Toy Story? I like the first Toy Story, yeah. I don't really remember anything after Toy Story number one, to be quite honest. All right. So a guy by the name of Cricket Moonsault at Good Raps Only on Twitter, he says, not to doom post, but sometimes I look at the future of wrestling outside of a select few and think to myself, we don't have another Samoa Joe, another Kevin Owens, another Sami Zayn, another CM Punk, another Bryan Danielson. These special performers who love the game so much that they devoted their entire lives to understanding it and appreciating it are pretty much going extinct, and they've been replaced by irony-pilled, uninspiring performers who treat it as the average day job. He said there's exceptions like Danny Garcia and even MJF, despite his very annoying habits, but they are a very rare breed. Um, so this is interesting. Clearly, all of these people have the same thing in common. Can anybody guess what all of the things these guys have in common? There's only three people here. Shit. But the thing all these people have in common, well, there's two things all of them have in common. One is they're all primarily indie wrestlers. Two, they're primarily all Ring of Honor wrestlers. And three, they've all either, well, most of them have gone to AEW at some point. And they embody what people think pro wrestling should be. I think that I actually agree with this tweet. You know, I I agree with this because what happened with all of these guys, and most of them were nerds. You know, Kevin Owens, Punk, Danielson, these guys were kind of like wrestling nerds who scoured the internet and watched everything and studied everything. And it wasn't always something that they pursued whether the money was there or not. They did it because they loved the art form. And that's fine, but over time, if you really want to attract the best talent, you have to treat it like a legitimate job. You can't treat it like this is something all the art hoes get into, because then you end up with a bunch of people who ain't got no business. I mean, these are the rare guys, even Kevin Owens, but these are the rare guys who became extremely famous for being wrestling nerds. There's plenty of people like this who didn't make it anywhere because they were a little too nerdy about wrestling, and a lot of those guys ended up in Ring of Honor. Let's just be honest. I think TNA beat the shit out of some of these guys too. They TNA beat the shit out of a lot of these guys. As TNA went from being somewhere that you could be an AJ Styles, an Amazing Red or somebody like that, and get some level of notoriety, and TNA started to mistreat guys. That kind of killed the love of the game right there, because TNA went from being the alternative to WWE to treating indie wrestlers and unsigned guys similar to how WWE treated them. Now, that was, of course, different kinds of management. I think that the Bischoffs and the Hogans and Bruce Pritchard, those guys didn't really appreciate what the initial vision of TNA, and even Jim Cornette to a degree. They didn't really appreciate the initial vision of TNA. But a lot of this kind of stuff, these guys, they lost their home when TNA went away. And what I mean by went away, I just mean it became less of a viable outcome for them. As we see right now, TNA doesn't delve into that kind of thing anymore. They don't really delve into the love of the game guys anymore. They go and pick up all these old dudes. ECW used to be a place like that too. It wasn't as many of them in ECW, but there were some. Ring of Honor and TNA were kind of like the two places where you got a lot of this stuff. WWE was never really that. They diluted that quite a bit with guys who were trained athletes and, again, treated this like a gig. The Brocks and the Cenas. They would rather have those guys than Samoa Joe and Kevin Owens, not just for aesthetics, but also they weren't, for the lack of a better term, marks. Okay. They understood that they were an investment. They understood, what their role was and what they were meant to do, etc. While these are guys who are, I think Samoa Joe did like a jumping drop kick and landed on some stairs and pretty much like tore up his back and his legs. It's like, it's just ridiculous shit that these guys were doing to themselves. Punk, I think didn't he crush his skull or something like that during a wrestling match, and he kept going. Like, just ridiculous stuff that these guys were doing in like Full Impact Pro, and they're like, why are these guys doing this shit? But the only reason they're doing it is because they love wrestling. And it's like, that's insane. You're an insane person. to do what you're doing, you have to be insane. And they are. Look at Danielson. Danielson is about to go, end up like the $6 million man. He's going to end up like RoboCop, and he's going to be in the ring. I said this before, that Danielson is like, he's like a karate bum, like Ryu or Goku or Kane from Kung Fu. All he really wants to do is engage in wrestling. That's really it. It doesn't matter if he needs like bolts sticking out of his neck, if he needs stem cells, if he needs like a body transplant, if he ends up like a head in a jar, like on Futurama. It's sickening. He don't give up. D-Mac says, what kind of mic do you use? I don't actually use a mic. I have a mic. I have two mics actually, but I never actually use them. I don't use mics at all because I think that the sound quality is not really that much different when I use a microphone, in my opinion. Maybe I ought to go back to using mics and see what happens. D-Mac also said, I might be an odd one. I'm cool with people treating wrestling as a gig. I just need them to take the gig seriously when they do it. I agree. And I think that part of these guys is that for them, especially for like Punk and Kevin Owens, wrestling was more of a expression. They grew up looking at this stuff, watching this stuff, and kind of saw it as a way to express themselves. And that's art hole mentality. That's not like professional athletics. But I'm not angry at them for having that sort of approach. I think you need to have that kind of approach because I think Maj Toure said something that was very interesting. He said the United States is not a not a melting pot because you put something in the melting pot, you kind of destroy the uniqueness of it. He says the United States is more of a salad, and I think wrestling has to be more of a salad too. You need to have your Samoa Joes, you need to have your Kevin Owens, your occasional dork here and there. You know, you also need your Brocks, your big meatheads, your Braun Breakers, and you need your Ilya Dragunovs. You know that let's go and give ourselves a concussion for the love of the game. You know, and you're like the latter part is very extreme, but you know the Benoits, the Ilyas. I know some people are like Benoit, like don't put him in the same category, but look at the shit Chris Benoit was doing. Chris Benoit was 100% for the love of the game, throw his entire body into the business. Entire body. Sabu was another one. I mean, maybe PWG is continuing to create these guys. There ain't not a lot of them, not that I see anyway. Most of them tend to be 40-year-old dorks who again was floating around in Ring of Honor and various other independents during the independent boom of the early 2000s, and that's it. Everybody who really debuted recently doesn't really have that same mentality. They look at it like it's a job and that they're professional athletes. And I think part of that was WWE weaning out a lot of these dudes and TNA moving away from engaging in that sort of thing. So even when you watch the independents, like I watch House of Glory every once in a while, GCW every once in a while, you see some of the idiots out there, you know, who are out there trying to kill each other. And those guys almost never make it out of the indies. You know, they almost never end up anywhere. I think Leo Rush might, I think he took a power bomb off of like the top rope or a scaffold or something like that. Like that was the most extreme thing. And maybe the Darby Allins, maybe Darby Allin. But that's like those guys are very rare, few and far between. But then again, those guys were always rare, few and far between. Most people don't have the same level of dedication that other people have to this space, and they're out here just completely destroying themselves, man. I see the name Sami Callihan, and he should certainly be on the list too. He also is another one who is willing to do whatever, and I don't get it. But I guess when you have no talent, you have no choice. Big Armada says, I'm actually watching TNA right now and just saw a match where effing PCO and Sami Zayn, who stopped giving a damn about his physique over a young tag team in the good hands. PCO is certainly, he should be on this list too, to be quite honest. He's 60, and he's constantly jumping off the top rope, destroying his back on the ring apron, falling on stairs, falling on the floor at 60. That's insane. And Sami Callihan, he's not 60, but he's certainly in his 40s. He's got to be because he's about the same age as Moxley. And he's destroying himself too. He stopped giving a shit about his physique more than a decade ago. Remember, he was chubby in NXT. He's only got fatter since. Physique not really all that important. The only person, well, I guess Punk physique has gotten better, and Sammy's physique got better. But Joe just got, he got genetics. It's like Pulp Fiction. He's Samoan. What the fuck are you gonna do? Danielson, it waxes and wanes when it comes to Danielson's physique. But these guys they just show up and let's get it. Let's destroy ourselves. Kevin Owens, his entire WWE career has been mostly let's take the stupidest bumps possible. I want to jump off this thing. Why? I don't know. It's like that's stupid. But they want to do it. And then they go out there and they do it. And then some people love them for it. I look at it and be like, I don't get it. I don't get it. One thing about Sami is I haven't seen him take any stupid bumps. He does silly things like, the Jackass match and, some other stuff that I find entertaining, which is why I don't typically denigrate Sami Zayn as much as Kevin Owens. But Samoa Joe's done some profoundly stupid things too. Damn near giving himself a concussion, getting into a slap fight with Kenta Kobashi is pretty stupid. But I mean, that's what the fans wanted to see. Again, the whole thing with the stairs was pretty dumb. But again, Samoa Joe was pretty smart. He didn't go out there and completely destroy himself. And I'm surprised Kevin Owens is still walking, if we're being honest. X9 says when Wheelie Useless wrestles in more than one company, he really is useless. I don't even see the purpose, and I don't know what that guy does. It doesn't matter to me. X9 says, did you see the Dustin Rhodes rah with AEW tweet yesterday? I did. I thought his contract had expired. Apparently not. I guess he's still with the company. I don't know. I thought his contract had expired and he was a free agent. I don't know. Seems weird to me. Dress Me as King says, I know what you think, but what do you think of TNA going for 10,000 seat arenas next year? That ain't gonna work. That ain't gonna work. Unless they got some kind of business metric that says that it's a smart decision. TNA barely runs big markets. Like they always run in Buckfuck, Tennessee, and middle of nowhere, Indiana, the occasional Chicago. They rarely go to New York. They don't go out west almost at all, except for maybe to Las Vegas. TNA, their schedule is so limited. They go to so few places, and then they only work really on weekends. I don't see them hitting a 10,000 seat arena. I wonder what business metric they're looking at that makes them think that they can do this. But good luck for them. I don't know, but it ain't gonna work with the roster I'm looking at. Yeah, Benoit's perfect. I mean, I think that looking at Benoit's outcome kind of smarten a lot of people up. Maybe that's why there's not so many of those guys. It's because people who want to go out there and destroy themselves, they're a liability. D-Max says, agreed, those dudes won't make it overall, mainly because they don't generally have a marketable trait. So they need the stunts to have any sort of buzz. Yeah, and then once you do enough of the stunts, you really destroy your value. And that's the one thing that I was kind of like every time I watch certain guys that I think have some level of talent, I see them doing stupid stuff. I'll just be like, okay, he's going to destroy his leg. I mean, Eddie Kingston, look at this guy had all the potential in the world. Went out there, broke his leg. He's been out for a year. I mean, it was a simple spot. It was a complete and total freak accident. But that's the kind of shit that happens when you're like, fuck it, screw it, let's go, let's do this. And you're like, wait a second, you're not thinking about it in terms of how can we do this and be safe, or how can we do this and be smart. When you're thinking about it like this is wrestling and it's what we do in wrestling, you're bound to get hurt. You're bound to screw up everything. PCO is a lifer. I give him props for kind of reinventing and adapting to create a lane for himself, but I feel like a bad bump could come at any time at his age. Yeah, I mean, I think that every time I see him wrestle, I just can't think of nothing but that I saw him in 1995. Like this, like I was watching this guy in '94. Again, when I was with Young Surts and we was at Bound for Glory, he didn't recognize him, and I told him who it was, and he was just sat there stunned. Like, how is this guy still wrestling? I'm like, bro, I have no idea. I have no idea how he's still going, taking these bumps, and he takes bumps every time I see him. It's not like occasionally. He's throwing himself at the floor all the time. It's like, oh, whoa. He takes more bumps than Randy Orton. Legit. You can watch Randy Orton match, he don't take a bump at all. PCO will jump off the top rope and land on anything. The floor, ring apron, steps, table, thumbtacks, anything. You just be like, my God, what is he thinking? It's just let's get it. Like I love wrestling. I love it. You're like, geez, what the hell? WG Phil says Owens wanted to jump off a ship, a proposed ship for Mania 36 before the shutdown. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of when I said it. And he still ended up doing some kind of big jump at one of those WrestleManias too. And he let Roman Reigns throw him off something, and he got hit by a golf cart. And it was just a bunch of other really ridiculous bumps. And I'm like, what was he getting paid for this? Like, I guess if you're gonna do it, doing it at WrestleMania, doing it in the big feud with Roman Reigns is probably the spot to do it. But I don't know, man. That's probably, if you're gonna do it, I guess that's the time to do it. Darren Miles surprised Matt Hardy can still walk. Well, he can't really. If you've seen Matt Hardy recently, uh, he's not very. He's about as mobile as a bookshelf. D-Mac says, and when TNA does hit NYC, then running the Winchester Civic Center or maybe the Melrose Ballroom in Queens. Yeah, it's like I don't think they can be able to pull off a 10,000 seater, man. That just seems very aggressive on their part. And I wonder where they get all this where they get all the confidence to be able to run these buildings. They must got something planned that we don't know about. I don't think so. Oh yeah, he was a Quebecer in '94. He was a he was a pirate in '95, and then he disappeared for a decade, over a decade actually. I think the whole thing with Diesel, what was that? That was late '95. I think that was the end for him. They ran him out of there after that. Oh yeah, I hate that Santana on the ring apron. That shit sucks. I wouldn't even watch. I don't even like it when Darby Allin does it. Like and he's twice Darby's age, and he's taking that bump. It's crazy, man. And you know what? The weird thing is, when I go back and watch a lot of like the Attitude Era stuff, I'm just shocked that 60 and 70-year-old Mae Young and the Fabulous Moolah was taking those bumps too, man. I was just like, what? And then you hear like their ages and you think it's an exaggeration, but it's not. Like it's not an exaggeration. They're in their 60s going through tables. It's like, what are you doing? What are you thinking about? It's they just down for it. You're like, that's crazy. It's just crazy. X9 says, why does NXT have 50-year-olds watching the product when it's meant for people in their 20s and 30s? That's just the people who watch TV. The average age of people who watch TV is really high. So if the average people, the actual fan base is probably much younger. It's been that way. The Nielsen ratings are a little bit skewed because if you look into the crowds, you almost see no graybeards and no really old people. But if you look at the TV ratings, it's almost always late 40s, 50s. Oh, the audience is really old, but that's not what you see when people come to the shows. So it's got to be that's just the people that they count who watch TV. And to be quite honest, only old people are still going to be watching TV on basic television or basic cable and stuff like that anyway. Anybody young is going to be streaming or bootlegging it, if we're being honest. Kidnapped. I don't think they're going to be able to find 10,000 people to kidnap. They're going to scare people. They're going to chase people down. I want to see how AEW does. I want to see how they do in New York. I don't think TNA could do what they do. Even in AEW's weakness, I think they still could beat TNA in New York. Just looking at the roster, and there's no buzz around TNA anymore either. Because I think the only one that really had buzz was Joe Hendry, and they beat him into the dirt. And now they got nothing. So we're back to square one. We're back where it was at the beginning of the year. They haven't done too many more NXT crossovers that I've seen. After Wendy Chu got run off of TNA, has there been another crossover? I don't think so. I don't think there's been another crossover. So there's no telling. D-Max says he feels like the Hammerstein show was damn near a guaranteed sellout for AEW. But what about Ring of Honor? I think Ring of Honor shit's gonna flop. The idea that they booked Matt Cardona versus Chris Jericho, I feel like that's a joke. I feel like it's a joke, bro. I feel like a joke. I mean, it's obviously a punch to the gut when it comes to GCW because Matt Cardona was supposed to wrestle Ricky Starks at the ballroom show. Now they're going to bring Matt Cardona in to work against Chris Jericho. What a joke. What a joke. And Cardona's about the money. It ain't going to matter to him. You know, Society Reviews, my dude, says, so we can't have Rock versus Roman at Mania, but we can sit through another washed-up title run by 50-year-old baby juice, Finn Balor. Nah. I said he should win it just to finish his storyline. I don't think he will, though. Like, once I saw the dirt sheets, like, oh, yeah, we should push Finn Balor, I was like, I just threw something out there because storyline, it would make sense. And I think in kayfabe, it would make sense. And I think with Triple H's mentality on as much as he loves Black and Gold NXT and he's only pushing those guys, it makes sense. But I don't think it's going to work. I think we're going to end up with Roman and Rock anyway. But The Rock's movie ended up being successful, so who knows? He might not show back up. That Moana 2 is seemingly doing very well, so he seems to be arrivederci. If that movie would have bombed and that Red One movie would have bombed, he'd be on Raw. He'd be on SmackDown tomorrow. But because those movies did well, or at least that one movie did well, he might decide he don't need WrestleMania anymore. But I wouldn't be too concerned about The Rock's involvement in WrestleMania until the Royal Rumble passes. If he doesn't show up at the Royal Rumble or before the Royal or shortly thereafter, I'll say the Royal Rumble is in February. So they have like a month and a half to build the show. The show is in what, early April, right? I would imagine you should get The Rock on TV by February, so before the Rumble. But if he doesn't show up by the Rumble, I'd be concerned. If he doesn't show up at least 2 or 3 weeks after the Rumble, before Elimination Chamber, I would be deeply concerned that he's not going to be there at all. But I think he's probably will going to be in there. D-Max says unless they bundle the Ring of Honor and AEW tickets, the Ring of Honor may flop in attendance unless they reignite the old ROH bots. I don't think so. Jericho versus Cardona? I don't think that's not going to get anybody spurs jingling and jangling. I just don't see it. I don't see it. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't know what they could do to get those guys to come back. I don't think they can bring those guys back. I have no idea. But Jericho and Cardona ain't gonna do it. The weird thing is, I was watching the TNA pay-per-view earlier, Final Resolution 2009, I want to say. Anyway, Raven was on that show, and he was bloated and old, and it just reminded me so much of Chris Jericho right now. I was just like, what the fuck? That was so weird. Like, as soon as I saw Raven, I was like, oh my God. That's how Jericho looks right now. You know, and Raven looked like that for a few years before he finally gave it up. Jesus Christ. D-Max says Finn Balor had a cool factor to me at one time, but that time ain't really now for me. Yeah, I mean, 10 years ago, it might have worked out because he was fresh. He was just coming in, and now we've seen him. He looks sleepier, and I don't know if it's an Irish thing, but he just looks drunk. I don't know, the deep redness around the eyes. I don't know, man. He looks aged. I know he's a little bit up there, and he looks fine, but he just looks tired and sleepy. Just kind of like CM Punk looks tired and sleepy all the time. I don't know what's up with that. I'm nearly against graybeards being pushed, almost completely at this point, because there's so much of it. I'm like, man, we need some somebody got to be like 28 at some point, bro. Like, we can't keep having everybody be 36 and 42 and like, come on, it's enough of that, you know. But I'm not at the same time. I'm not, I don't want to rush it. I just don't want to. Everybody to start getting older and older, which is what it seems like. Because Damian Priest is pretty fucking old. X9 says, even though Walter can be boring sometimes, putting on great matches, Finn Balor in 2024, I'd rather Solo Sikoa. It's because Balor has been cool for such a long time. And by cool, I mean he's just been chilling. He's been pulling a Carlito. I think he's since like maybe 2019. I don't think Balor has went 100% in anything. I think he's just been chilling. The Nakamura effect. I'm just here for the checks. I'm just going to chill. If when cuts start happening, maybe I'll pick things up. But for the most part, I'm just here to get the money and get out of here. That's it. I can't tell you Finn Balor put 100% into anything since then. Even the feud with Edge, I don't think he put 100% into that. I'm not feeling it. I don't think he cares, man. And that's part of the reason why I'm not really for pushing too many young guys. I mean, too many older guys. A lot of them have been around for so long, and they put forth so little effort for so long. Kofi Kingston is another one. Kofi's been chilling for years. Even before he won the title, he was in cruise control. And you're like, oh, man. Like out of nowhere. Now we pushing this guy again. I like Kofi, but I mean, it really only works for Randy in terms of people just being in cruise control for years at a time. Like, Randy's smooth enough where it works. Everybody else just looks lazy, But then again, if you're out there and you're 42 and you busting your ass, I don't know. You look like Damian Priest at that point because you working too hard. You're working extremely hard. You say you're not trying to see another big run for him. Yeah, I want to see what it looks like. But I don't really need it personally either. If we could blow this whole thing up and find some other way of doing something else, that would be nice. And I'm not really a big fan of it because I know it ends in a triple threat match, which is not my favorite. It's not fun at all. And I wouldn't be so hard on Damian Priest if he didn't have like weave. I'm not a huge fan of that. Woka King says the only good thing about last year's Road to WrestleMania was The Rock. What will Triple H do without him? The Rock will be there if he wants to be, and I think The Rock only wanted to be there because to rehab his career. He doesn't need to do that anymore. So who knows? He may show up, he may not. But I'm pretty sure he will show up because if he was okay with working last year's WrestleMania to build to next year's WrestleMania, I think that. But The Rock is a bullshitter, so who knows, man? Maybe he was bullshitting and he didn't like that, Triple H and Cody politic that whole thing. At the same time, though, this is his opportunity to put a stamp on himself as a box office draw, and he seemed to be having fun doing the whole final boss thing, so maybe he'll show up. It's crazy that he's in the middle of this storyline and we're like, he might show up instead of, he definitely will be there. It's kind of like, he might. That's The Rock. Who knows, man? WG Phil says the Balor for everyone basically moment the character died to so many people. Should have put on the face paint at 34, pal. Oh, yeah. That did it. He became less cool there, I think. And it had nothing to do with the gay stuff. It was just cringe. And that didn't help matters. And then, he was in the mid card for years. And again, you were talking about a situation where these guys, they've been presented a certain way for so long. Like, Balor hasn't been presented as a jabroni, but he's not presented as the top guy. He's presented as a floater. Finn Balor loses in 4 minutes in the second match 1 week on Raw. He main events and wrestles for the title the next week. He's not on the show at all in the third week. And you're like, perfectly fine, perfectly serviceable booking for Finn Balor, whatever. But with his size, he was never going to be Brock. So I don't know what the best position for him to be anyway. But it's kind of crazy that he made so many other people so much money, and it always seemed like he never got anything. And that's kind of like one of the little things where I'm kind of pushing for him, because we see all these guys running around talking about AEW wouldn't exist without me, and I was a cornerstone of AEW, and all these people are so important. Ricochet is now saying this shit, right? And I'm like, there wouldn't be any AEW without Bullet Club. Who the fuck started Bullet Club? It wasn't none of these people. It wasn't Kenny Omega. It wasn't the Young Bucks. It was this fucking guy who got nothing for it except beat by Austin Theory in 3 minutes on Raw. This fucking guy did the work, and nobody else is giving him any credit. So I kind of want to see him get some credit for everything that he's done. And I want Finn to, go stand on it. It would be great if he just cut a promo on Raw about how a bunch of other people is living off of his work, and he just goes out there, cuts that promo, lets it be known, and then I don't know. I don't know what to do at that point. But I always have a soft spot for that. As somebody who has done a lot of work, they didn't get credit for it. I don't like the idea. I mean, he got tons of money, so I guess that's enough. But you always thought that he was going to get some kind of pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, instead of just being treated like a kickstand for a bunch of other people. But it is what it is. I mean, such is life. D-Mac says, I'm on vacay that week at Hammerstein on a short subway ride, but they didn't really motivate me to get a ticket. The only allure would be the venue, since I've never been seen on a show there. You should go. If the ticket prices are not that outrageous, just go to get in the venue. The first time I went to a GCW show, that's why I went. It was right around the corner from my house, and I'd never been inside the venue before. So I was like, the ticket was like $50. It wasn't, you probably blow that on DoorDash. So I was like, I'm about to go over there and see what's up. So now, as long as it's in that particular venue, I will go to the show. If I have to, go somewhere else, I'm not going. But, if it's around the corner from my house, it's nothing. Go in there and watch some guys fall on their heads, laugh, and then go home. That's it. What's the big deal? He says, I like my Jafaican brethren, Kofi, but he was definitely on autopilot. I think a lot of those people, a lot of the mid-card guys have been for a long time. And it's been obvious. It's been pretty obvious. So I guess we'll see if Triple H can manage to motivate some of these guys. But that's what he's looking at. He's looking at all of these old dudes as the ones he's going to push. Giving 15 minutes to New Day on Monday was kind of like, hey, we're putting the ball in your court. And he rehabbed the Usos, which is great. The problem is the Usos have been around since 2010, whatever. AJ3 says he just watched Creature Commandos from DC Studio. I'm going to have to catch up and see what that's about. Boca King says, to corroborate on that, I was always joke with Finn about being part of the Demon Pride Club. Oh boy. He said you give Balor a chance to get him invested, but he kind of feels black. Yeah, I mean, he's just another one of those guys that's just there. He's just present. He's on Raw. He's not on Raw. Who cares, really? And the crazy thing is, Carlito got so much heat for that, and it ended up being a real major issue, especially for like 2010 to 2009. There were so many people that was just there. You didn't really care what they did. They didn't seem to be excelling at anything. It just kind of was there. And it was like 10 years of that. And a lot of those guys are still around. Surprising. I think Vince just stopped caring. Like he didn't churn the roster. As many people as he fired, he kept on so many other people. Guys like Heath Slater was around forever. You know, um, guys like even somebody like R-Truth, who I love. R-Truth's been spinning his. R-Truth has literally been doing the same gimmick for 13 years. His gimmick has been the same for almost 15 years. In 2011, he was doing Little Jimmy and all that shit, right? Here it is, 2024. He still don't know what building he's in, what venue he's in, who he's talking to. You're like, what is how did he have a job this long? But he won the people over, and he don't have to do a lot of work. So R-Truth doesn't wrestle sometimes, or if he does wrestle, his match is 2 minutes, and nobody cares because it's R-Truth and he's fun. So he has a job forever. He's just looking like, God damn, okay, never mind. I remember he actually said that he wasn't really happy with how his career turned out. And I was like, you should have thought about that when Little Jimmy was selling a bunch of T-shirts. You should have put a kibosh on that. Like, wait a minute, I'm going to end up doing this forever. But he did. He ended up wrestling The Rock, and he sold a bunch of T-shirts. So I mean, what can you say? He wrestled The Rock and sold a bunch of T-shirts. I mean, he probably still sells merchandise. Who knows? Society Review says AEW's fan base was indie fans who were upset at Vince for not catering to their brand of wrestling. That fan base is back to watching WWE because Triple H is catering to them. That's the unfortunate bit right there. And what's going to happen when they're upset with Triple H? Where are they going to go then? Because it's going to happen. It's going to happen sooner than they think, too. I'm about to blow my nose real quick. I wonder what's going to happen when that occurs. Ought to be interesting. Ought to be interesting where these people go. Because unless somebody starts up a new company, which nobody is, I don't see it really. I don't see it really going anywhere. Except people just stop watching this shit, which a lot of people have already done anyway. So let's oh shit, my legs. Let's get into this article. 10 wrestling world champions who didn't get a fair shot. The side of says AEW is never getting that fan base back from WWE, so they need to invest in a new fan base if they're going to survive long term. They should have did that 3 years ago. They should have found a way to invest and create new fans. Tony Khan was so concerned with winning old fans back that he forgot WWE lives and dies by there are new fans all the time. And once you get to a certain point where you understand the insider terms, Triple H goes out there and cuts a promo about him and his friend Mark, and everybody gets all upset without realizing there's new 8-year-olds every year walking around in John Cena, wristbands. They don't care about that shit. They don't even understand that. And that's always been the trick is TNA or whoever else, they want to appeal to 30 and 40-year-olds who are very fickle, very judgmental, overly critical, and WWE appeals to children. And that's it. But now Triple H is kind of appealing to the 30 and 40-year-olds and kind of forgetting that there's kids out there. Now, they are smart in so much that they're not going to change the PG rating, which I told everybody they weren't going to do, because it's not up to them. It's up to all their partners. They were never going to turn it. And everybody thought they were an idiot. Mattel and all the other partners are like, what are you talking about? These guys are talking about titties on Netflix. We're like, what are they talking about? What is Dominic Mysterio talking about, really? And Triple H is like, oh, no, we're not doing that. Be at ease. We're not doing that. And I knew they weren't going to do it because they're not stupid. And it would have been stupid. It would have been bad business. They may let some people get away with certain things like blood and cursing, but it's not going to be a raunchy show by any stretch of the imagination. They may decide to push the boundaries, especially during like the road to WrestleMania or something like that. But outside of that, it's going to be vanilla. It's going to be just like it is now, which is somewhat harder edged, a little bit more mature. Unlike Vince's more immature, pie in the face kind of humor. They're not really going to do stuff like that anymore. But it's going to be kind of the tone that they've already set. And anybody who thought it was going to be blood and guts action movie can forget it. It was never going to be that. Did I ever get a chance to see that sign that said Free Phoenix on Dynamite? I did see that sign, actually. I just was so bored by the entire show that I forgot about it. There's quite a few things I saw on Dynamite that I thought were hilarious. The Mina Shirikawa thing, I didn't mention that at all because I was so bored about the show. Mina Shirikawa is 36. That's all I can think of now is that she's almost 40. The Japanese really have a thing with neoteny. I don't understand it. I don't have to understand it. But their women look extremely young for a long time, and they act very young for a really long time. And it seems like she's going to wake up one day and be an old lady. I don't know what's up with that. Crossface Ray says Triple H comparing this era to the Attitude Era is blasphemous. He's just delusional. He's an idiot. WG feels I think the best possible way for him to rehab Finn is probably to go full Bullet Club with AJ, the Good Brothers, Hikuleo, and maybe add a young guy like Theory. But Triple H doesn't like charisma. The thing is, doing a full Bullet Club thing, because they've dabbled in it so many times, I don't think it'll work. I mean, the Good Brothers alone are just roadkill. It's over for them. Then nobody's going to care about them ever. Maybe you could put Balor with, Tama Tonga and Tongaloa. Maybe Balor and AJ Styles. But it's just been done to death. It's been done to death. And so I don't believe it'll work. I just don't believe it'll work. So, and plus the Bullet Club is really old, and I'm so tired of Bullet Club. It's dominated the wrestling space for so long. Enough fucking Bullet Club, man. No more. Enough of this shit. I'm so behind. D-Max says exactly. A lot of us became fans as kids. To some degree, you gotta with the fans early. Yeah, you got to get them young. That's what Vince knew. Vince knew you got to get in there and get them young. That's why he always had a superhero out front. So I'm really interested in what's going to happen when Triple H decides to abandon the kids. That's going to be an interesting bit. Because as of right now, well, I guess Bianca Belair is kind of their John Cena right now. She's kind of the superhero for the kids. And they're teasing turning her heel, which is absolute insanity. But they're going to do it. So at least I hope not. They're going to fuck around and she's going to be the one to try to kill Jade Cargill. And that's going to be stupid. Stupid. But what can you do? Big Armada says someone likes Truth backstage with Miz. At least he became an ambassador for the company. He always one of the faces on ads and campaigns for the company. Yeah, people love R-Truth, and I do too. But he had a gimmick for so long that you really kind of forgot how long he's been doing it. And I really sat down one day and was like, how we know R-Truth's been wrestling since like 1998 or something like that. But he's been in this specific role for a really long time. Really long. And whenever I start thinking about old guys on the roster, R-Truth's name just immediately comes up because he's so old. But he doesn't look old. And, he just came back from injury, so it's not like you're tired of looking at him. But the R-Truth gimmick has been going on for a long time. A really long time. And all the fan fiction about how to snap him out of it just sounds ridiculous. It's like when people used to try to come up with these fan fiction ideas to fix Eugene. Like, oh, it could just be an act. Like you can only do it for so long before you can't say it's an act anymore. Like if it was like 90 days, 120 days, 4 months, you could be like, oh, he was just acting. you know, but it's going on for fucking 15 years. He's not active, bro. It's over. You can forget it. D-Mac says the advantage WWE has, even with Triple H shifts, is the name value. If a kid does check out wrestling, 9 times out of 10 it's a WWE product, a toy, a video game, or the TV shows. Yeah, and I did some research a couple months back actually, and found that the video games really led to what is really led to the boom and popularity of pro wrestling was the video games. Once the game started getting really good and became more accessible in homes, you started having more people watch wrestling on TV because they were playing the video games. And I was like, huh, that makes a lot of goddamn sense. Because when you think about it, wrestling video games boomed at the same time the Attitude Era boomed. And when the games became popular, that's when, everything seems to synergize. Like WWE has always, risen with their marketing and their merchandising. Like something pops in the merchandising and then the company kind of rises along with it. Like when Hogan's t-shirts and action figures and they were doing Hulk Hogan lunch boxes and all that. When that shit started blowing up, it carried the entire company upward, and then similarly, a couple years later, the merchandise kind of tells them where to go. But now the games seem to be a mainstay. The people who get it are the people who bought it last year. You know, I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, but they do have a lot of the handheld games. They do what is that? The student trading card games and all that kind of stuff, which do attract like a younger audience. But that a lot of the Smackdown, Here Comes to Pain kind of stuff that they need to go back to doing that kind of shit. So, but it helped WCW too. Like when WCW games started becoming really popular, it led to the rise of the brand. Like the brand went up when the video games became popular, and then when the games died, the show died. You know, which I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. But it could be a chicken or the egg kind of situation where it could have been the brand exposure went up and therefore the video game sales went up. But from what my understanding is that when the video games popped, the show started to go up too. D-Max said the only time I paid attention to hockey in my life were due to old hockey video games. I'm a black dude from Bed-Stuy. Didn't know shit about the NHL. Yeah, like it was the same thing with baseball. Like we used to play sports games, like all kind of sports games, and we all watched football, so Madden wasn't that big a deal. College football, nobody watched college football but me. I only watched U of M. I didn't watch any other kind of college football. But baseball games became popular, and NBA games became super popular, and so that led to a lot of people watching the games. Now I know some people are going to be like, the NBA was great. It was just a fun time to play. It's like a lot of it was NBA Live. A lot of it was NBA Jam. A lot of it was those people wanting to play as Jordan or Kobe and Allen Iverson and all that. That was a lot of it, a lot of the culture. And that's really what people are not looking at. Because I hear people right now talk about how terrible the NBA is. I don't know because I don't watch it. But a lot of the culture around the NBA is shit. So people are not really enjoying the on-screen product because they don't like the culture around it. If the video games were unique and interesting and fun, I think more young people would be into the NBA and the product on the screen may be considered better, even if it's not that great. But back then, people loved the game because they loved the video games that went with it. They loved the shoes that went with it. They liked jerseys. The whole culture around the NBA is what led to the NBA becoming what it was. And it was the same thing with pro wrestling. Same thing with the NFL. My boss has Lions jerseys autographed in his office. I don't know why, but he just does. Like when people love the culture around a thing, it's even if the product on the screen is bland and it sucks, it's seen as generally a good thing. And the NFL has enjoyed this for a long time. but it's starting to wane on the NFL too, because a lot of the games are just becoming repeats of the previous game, and that's becoming a thing in all the video game spaces. They're not being as creative with the games that they usually are. Society reviews that TNA talent-wise are in a worse position than they were 2 years ago, when they hired all the WWE people they fired during the pandemic. Remember when the Iconics were there for like 5 months? Yeah, then they quit. They walked out. Uh, they're in a worse position partially because AEW started poaching talent. Now NXT is going to start poaching talent. It's they need some money. They're owned by a multi-billion-dollar corporation that has them on a very tight budget, and they're on a shit network. I mean, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. So, but TNA is never going to. They're on their belly, and they've been on their belly for a while. But they may learn to crawl all over again. All right, to get to this thing, what was that? Where was that? Oh, 10 hated world champions who didn't get a fair shot. I don't know what this means. This is in the Sportster. Uh, it says The Miz. The Miz is better in the mid card. Yeah, okay. I like The Miz though. The Miz rules. Steve Corino. Oh, oh, I hate Steve Corino. My God. Oh, oof. I don't want to read this. I just want to look at it and see what they say about it. Steve Corino was a desperate choice for ECW, a good worker, but not the best choice to be world champion. Uh, he was as bad as Justin Credible. He was as bad as Justin Credible. He sucked. It says Corino was a good worker, yet his old school act hadn't quite caught fire with fans. Having him win the belt over Jerry Lynn was a bad move, as Lynn had just won the title. Corino's reign wasn't too bad, with some good defenses, yet the fan reaction to his sudden elevation made it tough to get behind. As it happened, Lynn would leave ECW over a lack of payments, which just illustrated how messy the entire reign was. Steve Corino was terrible, and to be quite honest, he was too young to be world champion. But it was a similar thing with Justin Credible. I think I talked about this before, where they tried to smash these guys over. I think they brought Dusty in to try to help elevate Steve Corino at this time. But they brought Sandman back to get over Justin Credible, and they had Justin Credible do like 100 jobs to him and Rhino. I mean, Rhino especially. Rhino pile drives Sandman's wife through a table. They had the grudge match, and Rhino still won that match. It was insane, bro. it was insane that they booked that way. I didn't get it. I didn't get that at all, but they insisted, man. They insisted. Matt Taven. Oh, Matt Taven sucks. Oh, they say he's the guy who killed Ring of Honor. It's not true. He was dead before he got the belt, but whatever. On paper, Matt Taven as ROH World Champion was a poor idea. That is absolutely true. He was a veteran in the company with other championships under his belt, yet seen as a mid-carder. That is also true. It was the timing that made it terrible, as Taven won the belt over Jay Lethal and Marty Scurll at the huge G1 Madison Square Garden show in 2019. The majority of the ROH fan base wanted Scurll as the champion, and the backlash hit Taven hard. Somebody in ROH knew something we didn't know, which is about Marty Scurll, right? Because 2 years later, he would be completely run out of the business. Somebody was ahead of the curve. It was like, we can't put that belt on this midget. We can't do it. Won't do it. But putting it on Taven, what a fucking bad idea that is. Taven sucks. Oh. It says his 174-day reign was seen as a flop before dropping the belt to Roosh. Ironically, given how Scurll fell out of favor quickly with the fans for his issues, he's a fucking pedophile. Oh, he's a nonce, as the English say. His issues. He got outed for having sex with an underage girl. I remember this. I remember the backlash. I remember it. But somebody in ROH, they had vision. They should have just put the belt back on Lethal and instead of switching the title. Putting it on Taven was a mistake. It was a mistake. What a huge mistake. But yeah, Marty Scurll was definitely what they wanted. AJ3 says, where's Austin Aries on this list? We haven't gotten to the entire list yet. We only like 3 or 4 people in. Basically, anyone from that Honor No More stable. That stable. Oh. I actually like the idea of it, but the execution was garbage. Yeah, Marty was definitely what the people wanted. D-Max, I remember the online reaction vividly at the time. I feel bad for Taven. You could tell he was trying hard, but he was not that dude. Yeah, he was. He never had it. He just didn't have it. Why is the Ultimate Warrior on this list? Get out of here. I'm not buying that one. That one's not going to work. Diesel, that was Vince trying very hard. He tried very hard with Nash. He tried very, very hard. Wow, he was WCW champion that many times? That's 1, 2, 3, 4. He was champion 6 times in WCW? No, 5. I can't count. Jesus. That's still a lot. Ooh. Wow. Sergeant Slaughter was given a horrible angle. Sergeant Slaughter won the title probably 8 years too late. He should have won the belt before Hogan got there. He should have been, well, can't say that because yeah, he probably should have been the champion before Hogan got there because he was the biggest draw before Hogan showed up. Him and Superfly Snuka, and Snuka had murdered a woman, so that wasn't going to work. But Sergeant Slaughter was a top guy. Oh, 80, 81, 82. And then he left to go do the G.I. Joe thing. And then while he was gone, Vince decided to make Hulk Hogan the big thing. But I think that was kind of like it was some crossover between those two. The Sergeant Slaughter heel turn was a good idea. The Iraqi sympathizer stuff was not a good idea. That sucked. That didn't work. But Sergeant Slaughter as like a mean drill sergeant, that would have been good enough, you know. A battle of what America actually is, what it represents, or whatever. That could have been fun. But the Iraqi sympathizer stuff was way too much. That shit was too heavy. Anxiety Review, speaking of TNA, he thinks Scott D'Amore doesn't give a shit for being the one who ran down TNA with stupid booking decisions. Putting the belt on Tessa and the Gender Wrestling, Booty Goon, and Giselle. I wonder if Tessa Blanchard's going to be on this list. Because Eric Young's here. Eric Young was a good choice in the wrong way. No, he's not. No, he's not. Eric Young had no business being the TNA World Champion. No business whatsoever. And I hope Chris Sabin is on here too, because he absolutely also had no business being TNA World Champion. Eric Young, he was champion twice. Oh yeah, he was champion twice. He won the belt when he came back after he left WWE. Says making Eric Young TNA World Champion wasn't a bad idea in itself. Young was a TNA veteran with a good following. Building him up slowly, chasing after the title, and then winning it could have been a good storyline. Instead, TNA had Young, who had been doing comedy matches just weeks earlier, winning a gauntlet match, and then immediately getting the title off Magnus. Well, Magnus sucks. Now, Nick Aldis is fine. Magnus is terrible. He's really bad idea. And this whole thing was trash. Eric Young he's not up to par. as a pro wrestler, not up to par. Oh, Jinder Mahal is next, actually. Jinder Mahal is next on the list, actually. D-Mac actually liked EY as the champion the first time. I couldn't rock with it. I knew TNA was in trouble right there, bro. I knew they was headed for jagged rocks at that point. Jinder Mahal was elevated too fast. He replaced the injured Rusev. Who said that? Where did that come from? It says WWE planned for Rusev to win the title in 2017, only for him to get injured. Mahal was chosen for an improved physique and hopes he connect WWE to the Indian market. Wait a second. Who said that Rusev was going to get the title in 2017? Whose idea was that? Did Rusev say that? Because that feels like something Rusev said. I don't believe it though, because he wrestled AJ Styles and didn't win the belt. Was that the same year that this happened? Which I think, was it the same year? I think it was, wasn't it? I don't know. I don't know. This doesn't make sense to me though. I'm not even tripping over Jinder Mahal being the champion. I actually thought he was funny. He was pretty good. They didn't give him much. They didn't give him much to do. And he didn't have the belt long. And then it didn't help that Brock didn't want to work with him. So got his push killed. And the whole shit with India didn't work because he was a heel, which is dumb. And then I think he did a bunch of jobs over there too, didn't he? He went over to India and lost a bunch of times. None of that stuff made sense. It was a stupid fucking idea. And it was a terrible execution. He said Eric Young should have been champion in 2014. Later, you can make a case for it. I can't make a case for it. I can't stand Eric Young. He sucks. WWE TNA Full says EC3 and TNA should be on this list. It was the only good run of his entire career. I think the Sportster's site just crashed because my tablet just closed for no reason. And this site is trash. What is going on, brother? So I wanted to see who was next. And, oh, okay, there it is. I think the site just crashed. Oh man, I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Beat. I think part of fighting a cold that people don't recognize is drinking a lot of water and sweating a lot. So I turned my room into a goddamn sweat box, and it helped. Ronnie Garvin was a lame duck. Everyone knew his reign wouldn't last long. I agree with this. There's no reason that Ronnie Garvin should have ever been a world champion ever. Whatever, though. Ronnie Garvin upset Ric Flair for the NWA World Title in September 1987. It was a surprise as Garvin was mostly a mid-carder and not seen as true star material. The reality was Jim Crockett Promotions wanted someone who could beat Flair for the belt and then lose it back to Flair at Starrcade just 2 months later. You could have picked anybody for that. Who picked Ronnie Garvin? Why is David Arquette on this list? We know it was a mistake to put the belt on him. And that's the list. No Chris Sabin. If you're going to put David Arquette on here, why didn't Vince Russo make the list? No Chris Sabin, no Vince, no Jack Swagger, no Great Khali. But I guess you can't put everybody. But Diesel and Ultimate Warrior should not be on here. There's nothing wrong with them being world champion. Warrior was the most over guy in the company other than Hogan. So who cares that he won the title? That made sense, actually. Diesel, they were trying to do something specific with him. They were trying to create a face for the new generation era. So there was these reasons behind that. But who the hell? I mean, Jarrett. Jarrett, my God. Jeff Jarrett, for Christ's sake. Rhino was a world champion in wrestling at some point. Mikey Whipwreck. I could just start rattling off names, man. There's a bunch of useless NWA champions for a long time. Rob Conway, the guy who's the NWA world champion right now, Camille's husband, that guy. It's just a bunch of stuff. You know, these guys are terrible, man. Just truly terrible stuff. He said no. AJ got the title on a house show. A house show? Wait a second. What title are we talking about? He won the world title at a house show? I don't believe that. I saw him win that title on Smackdown. He beat Jinder Mahal for it. I'm thinking about, because I know AJ wrestled Rusev during the Rusev Day era, but I think that was 2018 because he wanted out after he lost that match. Rusev talked about it. He didn't want to wrestle there anymore after that. I mean, they made a bunch of big mistakes with Jinder that kind of hindered them a bit. I think him being generic foreign heel didn't really work out, but it was an interesting story. It came across similar to when Mark Henry won it. Like he was around for a long time. He had finally found his groove. He had 2 henchmen with him. He kind of was intimidating. He was a big dude, jacked. He looked right with it. The problem was he didn't get the booking to support it, which didn't help matters. And then, of course, the political aspects of it with the India stuff and the Brock stuff, and none of that stuff worked out. Yeah, they did have Triple H beat him in India. I thought that was ridiculous. I remember reading that. It was like, man, these guys, they wanted to be a big draw in India. For starters, he's Canadian. Secondly, they had Triple H beat him. I'm like, why? Why? I know they say that Triple H is a big star in India too. I'm like, who gives a fuck? Undertaker's like the biggest star on earth in India, next to Roman Reigns. I still wouldn't have had those guys beat your top Indian champion. You know. Also, didn't help that they knew he was Canadian. Everybody knew that. Nope. Wildfire, Tommy Rich is not. David Arquette was the last one. So Tommy Rich would have been a good choice, and they probably would have had to delve into why Tommy Rich became the world champion, which is scandalous, lascivious, because it involves certain weirdos. Tommy Rich was a very pretty young boy, I do declare. Ezekiel, I don't even think that shit counts, because if we were counting WWE ECW world champions, it would be nothing but that. It would be nothing but Ezekiel Jackson, Christian, because Jack Swagger was he was ECW champion. Ugh. It'd be nothing but that. I guess, but I still didn't like the list because why was Warrior and Diesel on it? I mean, most of it was okay. I mean, The Miz. I can see why people might not rock with The Miz. I like The Miz though. I see why people. Steve Corino, absolutely. But Justin Credible not being on the list is ridiculous. He's terrible. He's very terrible, especially considering Lance Storm was still there. And I'm not really like the big Lance Storm booster, but if you have a choice between putting the belt on Lance Storm or putting the belt on Justin Credible, you put the belt on Justin Credible. I guess they were hoping something was going to happen out of that, you know. And he did get Scott Hall to show up one time, and then he got chased out of there. So there was that. So I guess that's what they thought that was going to happen, but that didn't work. Then you had a bunch of dubious WCW champions, some real dubious ones, especially in the early days when they had 2 belts, and that was a weird time. A bunch of dubious Japanese champions. I know Chono was one of them, but yeah, come on. In WCW in like 1991 or 1992, random Japanese guy, get out of here with that shit. So that was, you could tell those people didn't put a lot of thought into that, because that would have been the first thing I'd have went to. It's like a bunch of fucking Japanese guys. Like, it's not even the Great Muta who everybody in WCW knows. It was Chono. Like, why is it Chono? Oh, nope, no Alberto Del Rio. I like Del Rio too. You know, he just turned into a jackass. That's all. But I thought Del Rio was pretty legit. I thought his work looked good. Personality, maybe pushed too fast. But I had no problem with Del Rio being the champion. I didn't hate it. You know, I think that he got a lot of retroactive hate because I don't remember people hating him that much at the time. But Vince clearly wanted something that out of Del Rio that wasn't going to happen. But language was also an issue. But Del Rio, I liked him. I thought he was an interesting choice. Just weird timing. Sheamus could also be on the list. Sheamus, I think the timing of Sheamus's runs were probably the worst thing about him. Clearly, anytime the Big Show won a belt was very dubious and quite scandalous. But they decided not to put him on the list either. I don't know. There's just so many people I could have thought of before I got to Diesel, though. I had to come up with a ton of people before Diesel. I can tell you that much. Especially when you look at all the major wrestling companies. Diesel? Nah, I wouldn't. Before the Ultimate Warrior, he wouldn't have been nowhere near my list. When you consider the fan reaction and you consider merchandise opportunities, it was absolutely the right thing to do. Absolutely. Under no circumstances, however, should certain people be near world titles. Like, it's just Mick Foley as the TNA champion, for God's sakes. Abyss as the TNA champion. Not that there's anything wrong with those guys individually, but the storylines around them winning the belts were stupid. It was just no. I don't think so. Jack Swagger left the AEW a long time ago. Adam Page title run was the shit. A lot of people would disagree with you. A lot of the AEW fans, they love Adam Page. I don't know why, but they do. He's just there for me. You know, he's not. I don't care about him at all. Tom Latimer, yeah, that's who he is. He was just a guy, man. He was just a guy. He's in shape at least, but him and EC3, oh my God. EC3 sucks. He sucks so bad. He sucks everywhere. And him as AEW, NWA World Champion was a big mistake. Him being a TNA champion wasn't great, but at least he was over. He reminded me a lot of The Miz, so that kind of worked. And it worked for the gimmick. But not really a huge fan of that guy either. There was just so many guys I could have came up with. D-Mac said Latimer is champ. Yeah, Latimer is champion. He beat EC3 about 2 months ago or something like that. It's been a while. It was very quiet. It was I think right after they lost a TV deal. Right after they left CW. I think the first episode that they had on Twitter was NWA 76, which I believe was it in July? Or was it in August? It was something like that. August, July, October, in that area. And the first match, EC3 lost the belt to Tom Latimer. It's on Twitter now. That's the only way I think you can watch NWA is on Twitter. They stream directly on Twitter. They still tape in bulk and release the shows in drips. They got a pay-per-view coming up, but I'm pretty sure it's just going to be like a house show that they're going to tape and cut up and post on Twitter. I'm pretty sure that's what it's going to be because that's what it's been so far. It's hard to sit through. I tried sitting through one of those shows yesterday, and I didn't make it all the way through it. So I can watch like a lot of the main matches, you know, some of the major stuff, but I go sometimes weeks without watching NWA. But the Latimer switch, I was like, yay, because EC3 sucks. And then I was like, you know what? I don't care about Tom Latimer. I don't really care about him at all. And they just going to run a rematch anyway, so it's not good. Big Armada stopped watching NWA after NXT took their spot. I think they stream NWA on Twitter, but I'm too lazy to make their account. Yeah, they do. They do stream it on Twitter. 45 minutes full of commercials for shows that are in like Buck, Alabama, middle of nowhere, Indiana. He's like, running a real building, for God's sake, what are you doing? You run out of a parking garage in Utah or something. Like, why are you doing this? Virgo Rebel Penguin, how you doing? It was a U.S. title, yeah. Vince Russo should be at the top of any list of a guy who shouldn't be world champion at all. I mean, for God's sake. But I just think that him and David Arquette would have been too obvious to put on the list. Of all the people that you could, them two and Vince McMahon being the world champion, that's too obvious. I wouldn't even bother with those. You know, those are basically angles. It's not like real shit. But if you're gonna go back and put Ronnie Garvin on there, then Tommy Rich certainly should have been on there. And then a lot of the dubious WCW champions at the beginning should have been on there. Yes. I'm not going to say anything about Jim Barnett that hasn't already been written. Yeah, it's super boring. I hate the NWA. I hate it so much. Corgan needs to sell the company at this point, bro. It's over. I appreciate his love for the business, but Corgan, you got raided. It's over for you. I don't even know. He's got a they them who was both TV champions at the same time. It was like a women's TV champion and the men's TV champion at the same time. I was like, bro, enough. You playing games, enough. I don't know what's going on anymore. I stopped watching it. So now I just peek in here and there. Tyrus was terrible. That's absolutely the right choice. And he was champion for so long. He killed the brand. He was champion for like a year. He killed the brand. He absolutely should have been on this list. Absolutely. The Funkasaurus absolutely should have been on this list. I don't understand why most people don't do Tubi or what is WoW on? WoW is on Pluto. I think WoW is on Pluto. I don't know what's going on. I think NWA, I think they burned a lot of bridge with that cocaine stuff. And they even started making jokes about it. Like the last time I watched NWA, James Mitchell was making a joke about the cocaine stuff at the last show. God, fucking stupid people, man. They profoundly stupid people. But they're making jokes about it. So they obviously didn't take it that seriously. But they ended up losing their TV deal over it, which is kind of important. Remember when EC3's internet? Oh yeah. Oh, you know what? There was a stupid list I saw the other day too about dead wrestling promotions, and for some reason, Control Your Narrative was on there. I was just like, man, I enjoyed the first show because it wasn't traditional pro wrestling. It was a lot like Lucha Underground, where it was a television show that featured wrestling matches, and it was unique. And it was their first pay-per-view, and I thought that was good. The second show, not as good as the first one, but it was good. And then they started running like a regular promotion. Never got off the ground. And part of that is because WWE snatched Karrion Kross, and Braun Strowman, who I think was part of the ownership of the company, and called them back. Braun Strowman went back, and Karrion Kross went back, and it was dead after that. Them being called Nazis and everything didn't help matters, but it was Braun and Karrion Kross leaving that really killed it, which you can work for yourself and make no money, or you can go work for Vince / Triple H and make some money. At this point, Triple H was reclaiming all of his all of his jewels before Vince came back. I don't understand why they don't do that. Eddie, see, look, there was at least an excuse you can make for putting the belt on Eddie Edwards. I'm not a big Eddie Edwards guy. I was never a fan. But you could at least make an argument that Eddie Edwards is okay. Sami Callihan, yeah, there's no reason for him to ever be world champion. Tessa Blanchard, I'm not a big fan of it, but she was the most over babyface at the time. And they were really building up to make that an important story they were telling. She ended up being an absolute asshole, though. So there was that. There was that. Tessa Blanchard, what a bad idea that was, brother. Lucha Underground Season 1 was some amazing content. The first 3 seasons was really good. When Matanza lost to a girl, I was done with it. I was done with it right there. He lost. Didn't he lose a Sexy Star or something like that? That was stupid. I hated that. But I forgot whether that was in season. Was that season 3? Because I know Matanza debuted in like. I haven't watched it in so long. He wasn't in season 1 at all. He wasn't there yet. I think they teased him throughout most of season 1. I think he debuted in season 2. Then he went on like this huge winning streak. And then he lost to the girl. And I was just kind of like, what? What? Now, still, it was a fun product. It was unique, you know? And I'm interested in different presentations. And it was a very unique presentation, even though some of the stuff didn't make sense, you know. And the fans weren't real. Like that was a studio audience, which was the same thing with Wrestling Society X. It wasn't a real audience. So that didn't help matters at all, actually. You know, too fake, very fake. Yeah, while I was on Pluto, Tubi got those Detroit independent films. There's so many of those things. NWA was truly over when they had Father James Mitchell snorting coke on the pay-per-view. Yeah, and then thought it wasn't going to be a big deal because it was on pay-per-view and not on TV. I'm like, Corrigan, you're an idiot. And even to this day, he still thinks it didn't matter. My God, it's so stupid. And now they're trying to do this NWA territories thing. They're trying to revamp all the territories and bring back old territories. All they're doing is just signing territories, quote unquote territories, where the talent owns part of the company. Like EC3's, I don't know if it's a school or whatever territory he's running that he's a part of, just became an NWA territory. I'm like, bro, this is about as bad as WWEID. Like half the fucking people that you signed up already work there. What are you trying to do? This shit don't work. I see you hustling. I can Google this. D-Max says, Eddie Edwards, I said a lot. Only time I cared about dude was ROH, TNA, American Wolf stuff. Yeah. I mean, I never understood the singles push, but I liked the American Wolves. I could barely tell them apart at the time. But I saw the intrigue in them as a tag team. The singles push, I never really got it. He is undersized, doesn't have the personality, good worker, but that was about it. You know, he's not engaging at all. And now he's fat, so I don't really see why he's still in the main event of shows. I don't get it. I don't get it. It's not as bad as Chris Sabin, because at least he has 2 working knees, but I didn't get it. I didn't understand the desire to make the world champion 5'7", 120 pounds, and like that be the standard. Like you can do that occasionally, you know, he overcomes the odds or something. But that became like a regular thing they were doing in TNA. It's like, this is dumb. This is dumb. Your people are stupid. He says episode 1 main event was Johnny Mundo versus Prince Puma, because it was awesome. That's why you remembered it. I didn't remember that because I don't know that stuff. I remember that match happening. I remember the what was it called? Was it called the Up All Night or something like that, where it was one match for the entire show? Like that was crazy. Like they were doing like really unique, creative things. Even when they were doing dumb ass intergender stuff, it was at least fun, you know? And then of course I became a big fan of Pentagon at that point. And then found out Pentagon was TNA world champion. I was like, what? And he was like world champion for like 3 days. That was it. I was like, oh, this is stupid. Real stupid. Okay, so this article is from Voices of Wrestling. It is called Tony Khan Needs to Tell the Second Half Better by Sam Fells. Who the hell is that guy? Who are you, Sam Fells? Should I click this name? This feels like it's going to be a mistake. I'm going to do it anyway. Who is Sam Fells? What else did he write? Did I read anything else he wrote? Has the AEW Women's Division passed Britt Baker by? I did a video on that. He seems to write about women a lot. Wait, it's not a he, it's a her. Oh. Or is it? Dun dun dun. I'm not gonna sit here and question the gender of Sam Fells. Sam is a unisex name, like Pam. You know, whatever. Penta was like in like 2017, 2018 had Buzz. It's crazy to see how you compare it to now. Yeah, it's weird because he was a superstar because of Lucha Underground, bro. He was a superstar. And that's why when I started seeing him in TNA, I was like, "Oh, this is a big." I missed his whole title run. I didn't even see it. I ended up seeing it later on TV, or I mean, like a video package or something. And when he came into AEW, I thought, okay, they're going to utilize that, but they put him in tag teams, and 5 years later, here he is, chubby, lazy, and now probably about to cash in and get a big WWE contract to do a Nakamura, which is to be chubby and lazy and do Zero Miedo 100 times in front of everybody, in front of the world. And okie dokie. I loved the feud between them and LAX. I thought that was great. I legit liked. That was the second version of LAX. For those of people who don't know, that would be Santana and Ortiz. Society Review says, remember when Allie was a Knockouts champion in TNA, and then she went to AEW, her career fucking died. That was something, wasn't it? Chelsea Green kind of complained about that too. She thinks that same thing happened with her in WWE, that she was a star in TNA and then WWE didn't value her. I didn't view it that way, but she did. But yeah, that Alley thing, exactly. It happened to Santana and Ortiz too. They were one of the greatest tag teams in TNA. They went over to AEW. They then became aligned with Chris Jericho. Went nowhere. Same thing happened to The Addiction, aka SCU. They were a big time deal in Ring of Honor. Then they went over to, I think they did some New Japan stuff, maybe some stuff in Mexico. I forget which one. And then they ended up in AEW where the gimmick died. And it was over from there. It was like it's hard to keep up the momentum when you have to book week to week at that point. Oh yeah, Allie was such an interesting case. I think she's retired now, isn't she? I'm not sure. I also think didn't her husband have to have surgery, like neck surgery again? It was a very weird thing. They ran Awesome Kong out of the business too over in AEW. What a disaster! What a mess. But let's say, so Tony Khan gets a lot right in his booking, I bet. Frequently, a wrestler's chase to the title has been expertly done. I underline the word expertly. Hangman Page confronting his demons to finally conquer them and his former friend come enemies. In Topic, Kenny Omega as a prime example. Pause, man. Mariah May running the All About Eve race course and toppling Toni Storm is another. There have been organic and surprise surges to the top that sort of came out of nowhere that AEW has handled on the fly deftly. Well, let's look at the three that they mentioned here. Hangman Page, Mariah May, and what I only mentioned two. Never mind. In any event, both of those were you could actually see that happening. For starters, they told everybody they were going to do that with Hangman Page. They told everybody before they even had one show that they were going to put so much effort into making Hangman Page a star. So, whatever. And the internet really likes this guy. I don't know why. The Mariah May thing, it worked because of Toni Storm. Toni Storm got hot, and it really worked because of her. Not that Mariah May isn't good or anything. She's actually kind of mid. But Toni Storm was exceptional, especially in terms of a character. So when they put Mariah May in as the second, and then did the turn was so vicious and so well done that it did launch Mariah May to a certain point. So I will give them credit for Mariah May, but not really for Hangman Page. I don't really care about Hangman Page at all. It says Orange Cassidy's run to the international title, the Acclaimed sudden ascension to the most popular tag team. It wasn't sudden. They worked very hard at that. Julia Hart's improvement in both character and in ring, giving her serious momentum. Okay. AEW seems to recognize when it has a raging force powering to the top and not getting its way. The problem is that so often, Khan thinks that the work is done once the title changes hands. Okay. It says the title reigns never matched the chase. Thus, ensuing title changes don't really carry as much weight as the previous ones did. Each is lessening the meaning of the titles altogether. The most recent champions are a prime example. Private Party had to really dig in to look like deserving tag champs, but with some serious work and some serious help from a finally interested Young Bucks, they got there. Well, they got the belts because the Bucks wanted to go away and they needed some black people at the top. Tell the truth, Sam. It was not a great run. It's not a great run at all. They want to put black people at the top, so that's why they put the belts on Private Party. And I told you they was going to do this. Now they're about to complain about Private Party as a tag team champions. When they won the belts, I said they were going to do the exact same thing they did to Phoenix and Pentagon, which is take them off TV. Because that's what they do when people win titles and nobody cares about them. That's what happened with Daniel Garcia. Daniel Garcia won that belt 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. He has not been on Dynamite since. Why? What was the purpose? You build him up on Dynamite just to push him on Collision. That's stupid. Stupid. It says one defense against three face tag teams, where the biggest story was the tease breakup of the Acclaimed. A trios match with Mystico. I'm not reading all this. So they basically complaining that all the title runs suck. It says even at the top, Moxley hasn't been able to free himself of this nasty habit. Before taking the title, Mox and the Death Rider seemed like they were the scariest fucking people on earth. It was the realm of possibility they would turn Dynamite into a sequel of The Running Man. They tried to commit murder multiple times. They promised big changes. There was there was big changes. It went from being a terrible wrestling show to being a boring one, which was even worse than bad, believe it or not. Then Moxley took the title, sent Bryan Danielson into retirement in a couple of different buckets, and since they're just another heel faction. Beats downs, cheating, and title matches when the ref's back is turned. Yeah, that's a heel faction. That's what they do. Why would you think it'll be anything different? He's misspelled Konosuke Takeshita, but whatever. Returned to the G1 climax. Who cares about what happens in Japan, for fuck's sake? It says Swerve Strickland, thanks in part to being the largest charisma machine on the planet, and in part to his 2 wins over Hangman, was white hot when he took the belt off to Samoa Joe His first defense on pay-per-view was against Christian Cage, where it wasn't the main event. I forgot about that. I forgot about that. That's hilarious. Oh, shit. His next was against Will Ospreay at Forbidden Door, where Ospreay was the focus. This is amazing. Do the TV defenses against Claudio and Roderick Strong make up for that? No. They said go back to Page's run as champion. It started with 2 banger matches with Danielson. That's because of Danielson, by the way. And then what? A Texas Death Match with Lance Archer and a mystifying feud with Adam Cole that made little sense. Before he had to fall victim to short-sighted booking. This time with CM Punk. Man, Phil looks so sad in these pictures. He looks so sad all the time. Come on, man. Why you always look so sad, Punk? What's going on? This article is quite long. This guy's long-winded. Poffo and Ace were at least memorable to some degree. We're talking about do you find disrespectful to put Ryan Nemo in the same catalog with Lenny Powerful and Johnny Laurinaitis? What do you mean? Why would you put Ryan Namath in the same category as Lenny Poffo? Like, what is? Oh, we talking about the untalented other brother? No. Lenny Poffo had talent though. He wasn't really like he. It took me a while to catch on. But no, Laurinaitis actually did stuff. You know, he wasn't particularly great, but he did stuff. And Lenny Poffo, yeah, he was a genius. The genius was fun. What is Ryan Namath? I mean, he's been in the business a long time. A long time. He was in FCW with Kofi and the rest of those guys. So he's in their age group. What has he done? He ain't done shit. So, no. I would not put him in the same category as those guys. It just, that's terrible. That's terrible. Mystico is the OG Sin Cara. That is absolutely true. And go try talking to Lucha fans about that to see what they think about it. They're very unhappy that everybody knows Mystico for being Sin Cara. And then they still blame WWE for him quitting in the middle of a match, him not wanting to go learn English, him not wanting to go to NXT. I mean, just all the things that were Mystico's ideas. Well, I guess wrestling in the dark ain't smart, but and the weird mask, a lot of excuses. But guy wrestled in fucking mask, and the guy hurt his finger and quit in the middle of a match. He was never going to get over after that. Everybody was done with him at that point. Talking about Jamie Hayter now. She became the biggest character in the women's division. Wasn't doing much before injury. Said the Bucks. I mean, he's just going on and on. Let's get to the point of this thing, please. Oh, it's near the end. So it says, heading into the end of the year, what titles are AEW fans really interested in seeing and the feuds that will surround them? Moxley will always be box office. Huh? Let's put a pin in that. Even if he's flattened out a bit. Let's put a pin in that. But beyond that, is anyone chomping at the bit for Private Party's next defense? I think people forgot Private Party were even the champions. Mariah and Mina have history and will deliver in the ring. I've never seen Mina Shirakawa wrestle. Has she ever wrestled on AEW television? I don't think I've ever seen her wrestle on AEW television. It's a foregone conclusion and will be quickly wrapped. Yeah, Mina's going to lose. Often we think of these matches as a bridge to something else, but what would that be? Well, everything is supposed to be a bridge to something else. Is Takeshita even going to be around? Where is he going? Where is he going, really? Oh, Sam is a guy. Oh, okay, good. They have a picture of him. I thought it was one of those weird things. The last time I assumed the gender of some writer of a wrestling newsletter thing, I ended up being disappointed, and it was like some dude with blue hair and glasses. I was confused, and he was confused, and I was just like, "Yo, forget it, just forget it." Um, D-Mac is saddened by the treatment of Private Party. He says it's a Brooklyn thing, but they needed to give them dudes a real follow-up feud. I knew they weren't going to do it because they never do it. I knew they weren't going to do that. The Young Bucks saw themselves as the stars. They pulled a Hulk Hogan. Watch us leave. So, and we're going to leave you with these guys. Just watch us leave, which is bullshit. Because everybody should have been interested in these guys, but part of it was the booking. Booking sucks. Why not have the Acclaim challenge fail and then split after failing? That would require storytelling, and they're not interested in telling you stories. They're interested in everybody being mad at Max Caster for his goofy raps. Didn't they sign the Grizzly Young Veterans, and weren't they supposed to face the Bucks at some point? Weren't they supposed to fight FTR at some point? I remember them jumping FTR a bunch of times, right? Did they ever have that match? I don't think they ever had that match, did they? If they did, it was on Collision. I didn't watch it. But the Grizzly Young Veterans suck. Give me Toni Storm retire or something. She said she was retired, but she's a liar. I think she's just injured, which I also saw that she tore her groin or something like that. It was something stupid. She was wrestling in Mexico. All that time, people were like, oh, she's retired. She was in Mexico the entire fucking time. No, she's not injured. She's hurt. I mean, she's not retired. She's only like 27 or something like that. She ain't retired. She ain't make that much money yet. Well, then again, she had like an OnlyFans. Maybe she made like $20 million or something like that. She can afford to quit. He forgot Private Party were the champions. Well, he won the belts in the middle of the show on Dynamite and then had no feud afterwards. Yeah, it would have been great. Society Review says AEW is going to put the belts on Omega and the Bucks again and convince themselves everything is fine. People might be happy with Omega if Omega survives whatever this thing he's about to do in Japan. Which, knowing that Gabriel Kidd guy is the guy who hurt Eddie Kingston, so it might not be the smartest idea to wrestle him, but he's going to do it, and Tony Khan's not going to stop him. So that's I know I wouldn't want to have one of my top guys that I'm paying a lot of money to go out there and wrestle some nobody in Japan and risk getting hurt. I wouldn't do that, but I'm not Tony Khan. So, I mean, it is what it is at this point. But I will remember the name Gabriel Kidd because he destroyed the leg of Eddie Kingston. It was a freak accident, but he was in the match, so he got to take the blame for it. And I probably would not be thrilled about him being the guy that was chosen to wrestle Kenny Omega in Japan. I wouldn't be thrilled about that. No, I wouldn't be thrilled about that at all. But I guess if you want Omega to win, it doesn't matter then, right? You can't wrestle who's that skinny bum that's the world champion over there right now? Zack Sabre Jr. You can't wrestle him, so because then somebody have to lose. WG Field says, I'm glad that FTR are not Triple H favorites because they cried about Trips and Sean bullying Bald. Oh, yeah, he had an anxiety attack or something like that, didn't he? He went home and had a good old cry. My daughter looked at me and said, Daddy, why the Bullet Club and the DX, why they beat you up like that? They did all 2 sweets all over your grave. Why did that happen? Daddy, gotta have some cookies. Oh, yeah, bad. Very bad. Honest question. Do you feel like there was a missed opportunity to make Omega in America early on? Hard to explain what I mean. I think what they wanted to do, and this is the unfortunate thing, and this is the difference between visionary thinking and traditional thinking. They wanted to cash in on what Omega already had done, not to build his legacy, but to cash in on what he had already done. So it was basically like, oh, he's already a legend. I think he won. He was voted into the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame at the time, like in the 35 years old. He hadn't done shit in this country yet. And it was kind of like, oh, well, we're going to use this as an opportunity to parade him around and say we got the best wrestler in the world, instead of using that opportunity to build something with Kenny Omega, which, to be quite honest, he should have been the face of the company. I understand Jericho being there to be like the mainstream face because he's the guy everybody would know. But for the most part, the missed opportunity was in building Kenny Omega's legacy, and what you said, making him in this country. They had no interest in that. They just wanted to cash in. And that's a big problem with AEW. Is Vince's whole thing was making guys come in and start over. AEW's whole thing was, here comes the big payday. You know, you guys worked so hard your entire careers. Now here's a whole boatload of money, and you don't have to do much else than what you've already been doing. And it's like, oh, that's great, but what about the future? What about 6 months from now? Crossface Ray feels bad for Camille. You know, I feel bad for Camille only because there's a large cadre of fans out there who think that she thought she was too good for NXT and all that stuff, which I had never heard her say. I feel bad for her for that. You know, if it was just a thing where Tony Khan offered her more money, I mean, how could you begrudge somebody for wanting more money? But so a bunch of people just kind of headcanon their way into, she thought she was too good for NXT. She never said that. I don't think she ever said that. So I feel bad for her for that. And I'm almost certain at this point that her views is the reason why she's being treated this way. But we'll see what happens. And she might be legitimately injured. I don't know. D-Max says he feels like there's some kind of hype around Omega. He says not sure if they were able to parlay that into a general TV audience. I don't think so either. I don't think they tried very hard either. I think they just catered to the people who are already there. Like I said, it was just kind of like Kenny Omega's the best bout machine. And everybody just believed it because those people already liked him and didn't ask any questions. Like swap him and Mox in the lineage. I think Omega should have been the babyface champion. You're right. I agree with that. It says, what do you think about the state of wrestling when people are proud to call Bayley and Finn Balor locker room leaders? Look, Bayley has been there forever. So I'm not surprised at all she's considered a locker room leader. And she's one of the elder statesmen on the women's side. I don't think she's the oldest one running around there. I'm pretty sure that's Natalya. But when it comes to being pushed, Bayley's probably the oldest pushed wrestler in the women's division, next to Charlotte. And Charlotte hasn't been around for a while. So I would imagine she got it through grit and determination. And the fact that she was in NXT Black and Gold, of course. But Finn Balor, he's been around forever. And he actually trained Becky Lynch and JD McDonough. He had a school. Again, you know, the whole Bullet Club thing. He had so much experience. I could see him being considered a locker room leader. Plus, he was there for 10 years. But I wouldn't consider him more of a locker room leader than... I was more cringing at the idea of New Day being the locker room leaders. And I thought that was weird. But we're beyond the days of Harley Race being in the locker room at this point. So, I mean, it is what it is. He says, without knowing how they are in the locker room. Yeah. I mean, I think the experience matters a lot. and how they carry themselves and how they handle business. I look at it from that perspective. You know, people who've been in the system for a long time. I think people who've been in the system for a long time are work as locker room leaders. And Finn Balor's been in the system for a long time, and so has Bailey, and so has New Day. You know, they know how it works there. They know the agents, and they know the TV and everything. They can help people. I think that counts for a lot when it comes to locker room leadership in WWE. Even if they're not at the top of the card and being pushed. But Bailey at least has been pushed and is continuing to be pushed, whether we want it to or not. And I like Bailey, but I wonder how long that's going to last. However, when Charles comes back, let's see if Charles listens to Bailey, which he probably won't. but what Becky Lynch and all them, they're peers. You know, you said shouldn't Randy or Ray be locker room leaders? Well, I'm pretty sure Ray might be, but Randy, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think Randy wants to be one. I think he's just kind of another one of those I've been here a long time kind of deals. I don't think Randy wants that kind of responsibility. But I think Cody wants to be one. We know Punk wants to be one. And Punk needs to chill because he was back there beating people up in AEW and intimidating them. He was so scary. But D-Max said it depends. Sometimes vets don't really play that role or want that role compared to your regular job. There may be parallels there. Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys, they don't really want that spotlight. They don't want that responsibility. You know, like it's a lot of responsibility to be like the person people come to when they have problems. Like I don't think a lot of guys want that. Randy certainly don't want it. You could tell he don't want anything to do with it. You could just look at him and tell. But Ray, I'm pretty sure Ray helps people. But you know, I'm not surprised at all that if there was like a decision, Bailey would be one of them. She just seems like it would be somebody that would fall on, and because of her tenure, her and Natalia. Like I said, she thinks she's the longest tenured woman on the roster, other than Natalia and Charles. So I keep calling her Charles. Yeah, some people just want to get in and get out. You know, that's an important part of working anywhere. Is your ability to get the fuck out when you're ready, not take on any extra work. you know, you know. But that's it's not really an age thing either. It could just be somebody who has played a lot of different roles, like a Bailey, who has been all over the card, and it might be somebody that might be a little bit more valuable than somebody who's always been at the top. You know. Do your 8, hit the gate. Absolutely. Punch that clock. Get the fuck out of there. He says, why are AEW fans obsessed with the idea of Punk being the Weinstein for the NXT girls? Oh, oof. I think it's probably because he always taking pictures with them. But I don't know. I think people just don't like him. And I'm not a big fan of him either, but I'm not going to jump to that extent. I know he had a reputation in the past, so that doesn't help matters. But he's almost 50 now. It's not going to be the same thing as it was, you know. Mongo, have you heard about these kids saying streaming is harder than a 9 to 5? I have. I have. I think I talked about that a couple of months ago. Like most of these guys have never had real jobs, you know? So they grew up. I mean, and it's tough to stream, you know? That Kai Cenat dude showers on stream. He's weird. Dude, just go on break for 20 minutes and wash your ass. Like, it's so weird when I see clips of him showering on stream. I'm like, who the fuck is watching this? And why are you watching this? Dude, go wash your ass. Go eat, take a nap, and come back. If they're really fans, they'll be there when you get back. You know? All right. Let me go to the bathroom and call this thing a night. I'm about to take some of this NyQuil, hopefully finish this goddamn cold off. You said Hassan is in his mid-30s. He's also a socialist, so who cares? He's a lazy fucking socialist. Of course, he would say it's too hard. Streaming is hard though, because you got to entertain people. You know, you got to be engaging. You got to know shit or be doing something. But you don't have to leave your house, and you set your own hours. So it's not as difficult as a 9 to 5. You know? All right. Thank you guys for stopping by. I'll talk to you guys later.